Hello sweet friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Rachel and this is Rock City Cookies. Today you are going to join me as we work on an order for an engagement party. So let's make some cookies. The customer for this order was planning a surprise engagement party for their daughter on the night of her engagement. So they knew a couple things. They knew the day he was going to propose, and they also knew that in her wedding she was wanting to use the color terracotta. They made their own decorations. They sent me some pictures of some of the things they made and a few other inspiration pictures, and then gave me total creative freedom to do whatever I wanted to do. We have 8 designs for this set. Y'all, 8 designs is a lot. I don't normally do 8 designs. I have no idea why I did 8 designs, but I did, so here we go. Let's talk icing consistencies real fast. I do 2 consistencies for every single color. This helps later on in the process. Instead of having to run back and forth to thicken icing or thin icing, I start every single set with 2 different consistencies for every single color, just in case I may need them. All right, the first cookie we're gonna work on is the engagement ring cookie. Pipe an outline using thicker icing. With a flood consistency, fill the entire outline. Using a scribe tool, pop any visible bubbles that you see and then gently shake the cookie to smooth out the flood. While the cookie is drying under a fan, go to Google and find an image for an engagement ring that you would like to use as a guide. I searched for an engagement ring outline and found this one I'm using here. If you have a projector, project the image onto the cookie. If you don't have a projector, just have the picture up to use as inspiration as you work. Using a piping consistency, pipe the outline of the ring and the prongs. I chose to do an orange ring so that it would match the colors in this set, but I also think it's a really great idea if you wait until the icing has dried and then you paint on an edible gold or rose gold just to make the ring look more metallic. With white piping consistency, outline the diamond. Then with a thicker flood icing, fill the diamond. I wanted to give the diamond some sparkle, so I chose to use white diamond edible glitter spray from Diamond Dust. I'll link it in the description box below. Spray just the diamond or the whole cookie. I personally preferred how it looked to spray the whole cookie. To prevent the icing on the diamond from cratering, you need to let the icing dry for just a little bit before you go back and pipe the details on top of the diamond. I wanted to add some florals to the diamond ring, so I started by piping my primary vein onto the ring. Off of the primary vein, I piped 2 smaller veins with a darker green icing. I then piped my small leaves by putting pressure on my bag at the actual vein, and then as I released the pressure, I moved my icing bag outward and it made the cute little sharp point that you see on all these leaves. Next, I wanted to pipe my thicker leaves onto the primary vein. To accomplish this, pipe a thicker dot of icing, and as you release the pressure from the bag, pull the icing downward towards the vein. Alternate sides all the way down the vein. For set consistency, I wanted to make sure to subtly include as many colors from the set as I could in this cookie. I accomplished this by adding color in on the little flowers. To start, I piped small groupings of flowers onto the thicker leaves, and on the smaller leaves, I just piped circular flowers. That's it, the engagement ring is completely done. Let's move on to design number 2. This is the love cookie. Outline the cookie with a thicker icing and then immediately fill in the outline with a flood consistency. This love cookie cutter was purchased on Etsy, and I'll be sure to link that in the description box below. While the cookie is drying, it's a good time to get your graphics all put together. So if you don't have the graphic for this love cookie cutter saved, I recommend going to your purchases, looking at the listing, taking a screenshot of that graphic, and then putting it somewhere in your phone that you can access it easily. I have a folder that says cookie cutter images, and I keep it there so that I can pull it up anytime I use this cutter. If you have a projector, project the love onto the cookie. If you don't have a projector, this is a really easy cutter to use without. You can easily see where each letter goes, so feel free to hand letter this cookie. You can use a contrasting color on this cookie to pipe the lettering, but I chose to use the same color as my cookie. Finally, I think it's so important to keep consistency throughout a set. So I used edible glitter spray on the last cookie with the engagement ring. So I wanted to make sure I repeated that on a few other cookies in this set. So I think this is another great cookie to spray with edible glitter spray. And done. The love cookie is complete. All right, here we go. Design number 3. This is the cookie that has the engaged couple's names on it, which happen to be Sophie and Noah. For this cookie, I wanted to go with a simple shape as my background. So I love the long hexagon for this purpose. I also knew I was gonna have 2 lines of text on this cookie. I knew that I would have her name on top and his name on bottom. And so I thought as the background, I would use a 2-toned cookie to kind of complement the text. To have a 2-toned cookie, you can do this one of 2 ways. You can flood an entire section of the cookie, let it completely dry, come back and flood the second part of the cookie, or you can have the 2 colors blend together so it's one solid flood, which is the look I was going for with this cookie. After you have finished outlining and flooding one half of the cookie, go right ahead and outline and flood the second half of the cookie in a different color. Be careful when flooding where the 2 colors meet. If you put too much pressure on the piping bag as you're piping the icing right next to the first color, you'll get a wavy line in the center of your cookie. But if you gently pipe next to the line and kind of let the icing naturally go and connect with the first color, you'll get a nice straight line. As always, pop any visible air bubbles. However, again, I'm going to caution you as you're popping the air bubbles, make sure you're not dragging your icing too much, because if you do, you can change your straight line to a wavy line by accident. Trust me, I know. While the cookie is drying, you will need to create a graphic that has the names of the couple on it. Personally, I prefer to use the app Phonto, and that's Phonto, the Phonto app. And I'll link that down below. And I do plan on doing a tutorial using this app soon, so be on the lookout for that. After you have your graphic done, it's time to project your graphic onto your cookie. Or, as always, if you don't have a projector, feel free to hand letter the couple's name. I find that icing that is the consistency of a Bout toothpaste is perfect for writing. After I completed some of the other designs, I felt like this cookie was missing something. It just needed a little something extra, so I came back and added a little leaf design with the circular flowers. I think it's much better. So this design is complete. When this video is over, I'm going to show y'all the amount of snow that we're getting right now while we're recording. It's so difficult to look at you guys when all I want to do is look at this beautiful snow outside my window. All right, let's move on to the 4th design. On the last design, we included the couple's first names, but this time I wanted to make sure to include the couple's soon-to-be last initial. And I wanted to also make sure that had the little floral element as well for that set cohesion. For this cookie that I had designed in my head, I did not actually have the cookie cutter for. So I knew I wanted to do a Franken cookie. If you don't know what a Franken cookie is, it's when you combine 2 cookie cutters into one and make a totally new design. So that's what I did here. I took a leaf cookie cutter and a rectangle cookie cutter and I meshed them together to make one new design. To do this, you need to cut out the first shape, and that shape needs to be the one that you're going to actually cut into. So I knew I was going to be using my leaf on the side, so that is the one that I was going to cut into. After I have my leaf on my baking sheet, I'm then going to take my second cookie cutter and cut into the leaf. So you see that I'm doing that here. I'm taking my rectangle, I'm cutting into my leaf, and then I'm removing the piece of the leaf that I do not need anymore. And now, as you can see, I have a nice spot for my rectangle to go. Now it's time to cut out your rectangle shape. So do that and then move that shape onto the baking sheet right into where the space is that you cut out of the leaf. Now I know right now it looks like it's 2 separate designs, but as it bakes, the cookies will actually merge together and it'll be one solid shape. Now I have my franken cookie, so let's decorate it. As I talked about in the Sophie and Noah cookie, we are doing a two-toned cookie here as well, but we're going to use the other technique. And this technique, when you're doing a two-tone cookie, is to let each section dry individually so that the floods do not merge together and you have two very distinct sections. Choose a side to flood first. Now, I typically like to flood the largest section of the cookie first. That gives that section a little bit more drying time, which is important. So on this cookie, I'm going to outline and flood the rectangle first. If you are not drying your cookies under a fan or a dehydrator, please, my sweet friends, make the switch. It will make cookie decorating so much easier. You definitely want to be drying under a fan or a dehydrator. It gives your cookies a nice shiny look, but also it just makes the process so much faster. Okay, and on two-toned cookies where you're doing two different sections, you really need to make sure that first section is really dry. Really dry, guys, because if you don't, when you go to move your cookie to decorate the other side, it will crack. So make sure that you've had plenty of drying time before you go to decorate the second section. So my cookie has had a little while to dry. It's safe to move. It doesn't budge. The icing doesn't budge at all. So I'm going to go ahead and outline and flood the leaf section of this cookie. I'm doing a different color for this section. So outline, flood, pop any air bubbles. I do want to take a second to explain why I'm flooding the leaf side of this cookie. This is twofold. First, I want the icing to be completely covering my cookie, and this just protects the cookie and it keeps it from drying out. And the second reason is that I wanted to make sure the leaf part was flooded so that when I went to pipe my leaf design later, it gives my leaf a little bit of height and dimension, which will just make the whole cookie look better. Now it's time to add the designs. I knew for this design I wanted to do the leaf first so that I would then know the best placement for the initial later. First off, pipe the primary vein from the bottom of the leaf all the way up to the top of the leaf, and then go through and pipe all your other veins going off of that primary vein. Then start adding your leaves. To make the small dark leaves, you will want to put your piping bag right next to the vein, put pressure on the bag, and then release the pressure as you also pull your piping bag outward. That will give you a nice sharp little leaf. Finish out all the small leaves and then go for your thick leaves. And this time you do the opposite. You start by putting pressure on your bag away from the vein, and then as you release the pressure from your bag, drag your icing to the vein. And that will give you that nice full rounded leaf, and complete your leaves by alternating back and forth on either side of the vein. Now finish off your leaves by adding your floral elements. Again, I prefer to do the small grouping of dots on my thick leaves, and then on my small leaves I do small circular flowers. The last element for this cookie is the couple's last name initial. So to do this, I once again used my app called Fonto. I found the font I liked, the size I wanted, and I projected it onto my cookie. In the areas I knew that I wanted to flood, I first went in with my thick icing and made squiggly lines. I will have a video on this in my quick tip Tuesdays, so make sure you check back for that. But basically the reason for this is it helps to prevent cratering. Fill in this area on top of your squiggly lines with a medium consistency icing. You are not going to want this too thin, you're not going to want this too thick, so it's really kind of a middle of the ground icing that will work the best to keep its puff and to not crater. That's it. The floral initial franken cookie is complete. Okay, my friends, it is time for design number 5. This is a super simple design. It didn't take me long at all to do it. This is just a heart with the word engaged on it. Outline the heart cookie with a thick consistency and then immediately go back and flood it with your thinner consistency. Pop any air bubbles, gently shake the cookie to smooth out the flood. After your cookies have dried under a fan for a few hours or in a dehydrator for a few minutes, it is now safe to be able to do texture on top of the cookie. With my thick icing, I chose a contrasting color and I piped some squiggly lines onto my cookie. With your paintbrush, smooth out the icing. With your Fonto app, make the engaged lettering in your choice of font and then project it onto your cookie. Trace the words or freehand if you do not have a projector, and that's it. Voila! Design number 5 is done. All right, design number 6. Because I like the set cohesion, I definitely wanted to make sure I did just a leaf cookie all by itself. I purchased this leaf cutter from Etsy. I'll be sure and link it down below. And I decided to also repeat the 2-tone effect that I did on the Sophie and Noah cookie. This time though, I wanted to use 2 different colors than what I used the first time, and I also wanted to have kind of a crooked line instead of a straight line, just to make it a little bit different. The first thing you do is outline one section with one color, immediately flood, and then right away outline the second section with a different color and flood it as well. As I mentioned before, be careful when you're connecting the 2 lines together. Don't push too hard on your piping bag. Let it combine naturally. Be gentle popping out those air bubbles, and also if it needs to, just give it a little shake to smooth out your flood. Now that my cookie is dry, it's time to add the leaf detail. Now it's no surprise, it's the exact same technique that we've done before, so let's do it on super speed. Do your veins, do your flowers, and done. Quick as a whip, design number 6 is in the books. Here we go, we are nearing the end. This is design number 7. This is the purple flower. Now, if you remember in the pictures that the customer sent me, they hand dyed flowers to make their decorations, and they made a beautiful wreath. So I wanted to make a nod to all the work that they had done by making sure to include flowers. So I wanted to do a purple flower, and of course I wanted to do a terracotta flower. But for this design, let's talk about the purple flower. I did not have the cookie cutter I wanted to use for this cookie, so I once again did a Franken cookie. I took a circle and I took that same leaf cutter I used earlier, I meshed them together, and I got this design. First off, we're going to do the same technique that we did with the other Franken cookie. You need to cut out your secondary design. This is the design that you are going to be cutting into to fit your main design. So I went ahead and cut out my leaves, and I placed those on my baking mat. Now that the leaf is on the baking mat, I need to make a place for my circle. So I'm going to cut out part of the leaf so that I have room to fit my circle. Remove any of the excess dough, and there you go, you have a space for your circle. Cut out your circles from your cookie dough, move those onto your leaf, push them together, and remember, when you bake these, they will merge together. You have to have faith. On this cookie, I am going to flood the entire cookie. Yes, it will be completely covered. You will barely be able to see the flood. However, remember my reasoning for doing so. First, it protects your cookie. It keeps it fresh. It keeps it from drying out. I swear by this, you guys. It really does make a huge difference. And 2, I like that it gives my cookie some depth. So it's not just my elements just sitting on a naked cookie. It really evens things out, and it makes the flowers and the leaf element pop more. This is the exact same leaf design I have done throughout my set. You're very familiar, but I'm going to quickly explain it again. Draw your primary vein, put all your other veins off of it, do your small leaves first, your large leaves second, and then pipe your groupings of flowers. Now that the leaf is in place, it's time to pipe our large purple flower. One of the reasons why I chose a purple flower on this set is because yes, in their inspiration pictures, they did have a very similar color and I wanted to make a nod to that. But also I have put little tiny purple circular flowers all throughout the set. So I wanted to use that color in a bigger way so that those purple flowers made sense. Again, I'm always thinking about how I can make my sets look cohesive, like they all go together, that you can look at one and it's beautiful, or you can look at the whole set and it's beautiful. Now for this large purple flower, I decided to use the Wilton Tip 150. I will link that in the description box below, so check it out if you want to buy that for yourself. I do want to warn you, for these flowers, you do need a pretty thick consistency. Now, it's kind of tricky. You don't want it too thick that it breaks someone's teeth while they're trying to eat it, but you definitely need it to keep its shape. So what I typically do is I take my icing and I add a little bit of powdered sugar to it to thicken it up. Again, you do want to add the powdered sugar slowly so that you can make sure it doesn't get too thick too fast. So I added in 1 spoonful at a time. I mix it really well. I mixed it until when I pull up my spatula and I put it back down, that icing does not really blend back in with the icing in the bowl. So just make sure it's pretty thick, that you don't see it going back together at all, and you'll be set. Now that I have my Wilton Tip on my piping bag, you are going to want to make sure you have a cookie on a turntable. This will make it easier as you're spinning your cookie. You can be doing your floral element. I use just a turntable from Amazon. I'll link it down below. It's worked great for 2.5 years for me. Have one hand on your turntable, and with the other hand you will have your piping bag and you will be going back and forth. Now this just makes it easier. You could technically go back and forth with your hand all the way around the cookie, but I find that if I keep my piping hand still and I only go back and forth with it, and then I use my other hand to turn the cookie on the turntable, I just get an easier, faster result with my flowers. Once your flower is complete, I add white non-parallels on top just for that little extra added touch, and then I sprayed the purple flower with edible glitter spray. The purple flower is done. So we are moving on to the final design number 8. We have made it to the end of the cookies. This is a really simple cookie. I love doing florals for this reason, because I can crank these out super fast. For this type of flower, I actually like to use a scalloped cutter. Now this particular one is listed in our Etsy shop. I'll link that down below, but really any scallop cutter will work. For this flower, I didn't use the same tip as I did before. This is a Wilton Tip 102. This makes the leaves just a little bit different than our other flower. You will want to use the same back and forth motion with your piping bag, only this time instead of doing a big circle, you're actually going to want to make each petal individually. Start on the bottom of the petal and you'll work your way outside, and you'll move your piping bag just back and forth around the scallop until you have your petal. That's why I like to have the scallops, is because the scallops I use as a guide to show me where each of the petals needs to go. You will make all of your outside petals first, and then you'll go in and do a second layer. I usually start my petal in between 2 petals, and I do each petal on the inside, and then once those are done, I typically do a swirl in the middle just to close out my flower, and I add white non-parallels onto the flower as well, just for that little extra detail. That's it, my friends, we did it! All 8 designs are on my baker's rack drying in front of a fan. I actually let my cookies dry overnight. I typically like my cookies to dry between 24 and 36 hours depending on how thick the cookies are, depending on humidity. There's a lot of factors, but I typically like 24 to 36 hours before I bag them. If you bag your cookies too soon and they are not completely dry, they will actually stick to the bag. So you really want to make sure your cookies are nice and dry before you bag them. All right, it's the next day. Let's check on how these did overnight. I'm really happy with these. They turned out great. I didn't get any cratering on my letter B, which is always a win. let's get these pictures taken. I always take several to send to my customer and to make sure I have plenty for social media. Okay, pictures are taken, videos are taken. Now let's move on to the next step. It's been about 30 hours since I first started decorating these cookies, so I'm ready to package them. They'll be perfectly fine in their little heat sealed baggies, and I wanted to show you guys how I did that. Truthfully, I will never send out cookies without them being heat sealed. I don't even let it be an option for my customers. It is just standard. Every single cookie is heat sealed. Let me tell you about my bags I use. So I use clear bags, and I will link them down below. I have always used clear bags. I've never had an issue with them. I just love them. I'm a loyal customer beginning to end. I will always use clear bags. But the sizes I like to buy is 4x6s and 5x7s. And the reason why I choose those two sizes is because those fit all of my cookies. I can trim down if I need to, but you can never get a larger bag. So I typically like to get the larger bags and always trim down to fit the size of my cookie. Any poly bags will work with a heat sealer. I've gotten them at Hobby Lobby before. I've gotten some from Walmart before. I'm sure Amazon sells them as well. I can look up some of those resources and put them down below if you don't want to purchase from clear bags, but I do highly recommend clear bags. We also need to talk about packaging real quick. I differ from pretty much any other baker I know in how I package my cookies. I don't like the bakery boxes. I know everyone uses bakery boxes in shred, but I personally do not like those and will not use them. The one time I did use them, my cookies broke and I cried, and it was heartbreaking and devastating, and I never want to experience that again. So I use shipping boxes. Now, I do ship cookies every single week, so I use these boxes in multiple ways, but it's nice to not have to store two totally different types of boxes. I use boxes for shipping and I use them to package and give them to my customer. It's the same box, it's the same storage. So this particular product is a white literature mailer from Uline, and the product number is S-2423. I'll link it below, but it's perfect for between 2 and 3 dozen cookies. Potentially even up to 4 dozen depending on how thick your cookies are. But this is what I prefer for this amount. I should mention that this order is a local order, so I will not be shipping these. I actually will be putting them on my porch for a porch pickup tomorrow. So the first step is to cut off the lid. I do not need the lid on this box because somebody is coming to pick them up here at my home. So therefore, I can place all of these cookies standing up on their side vertically. I do like to make sure that the cookies aren't slipping around, so if you have any extra space in your box at that point in time, you might want to add shred, you might want to add something to kind of keep your cookies secure. But I have found that this size with this many cookies, I actually don't need to do that. They all fit well in the box. That is it. I have edited the pictures, I have watermarked the pictures, and I have emailed them to my customer, who was very pleased. As always, such a relief to get back a good response from a customer whenever I send them pictures. So we are done. Be sure to come back next Tuesday for a quick tip video. Be sure to like and subscribe below. It's the best way to support my little business. And until next time, my sweet friends. Bye-bye. Why is this so hard to say? Franken cookies? I have 20 minutes to finish this. Yikes. I'll probably be looking at the camera when I'm talking. Okay. No. Hexagon. I love that. Hexagon. Why can I not say that? Yeah, I was like obviously looking at the camera. Already done that. I have children coming. We're gonna have to finish this later. Bye-bye.